Hello and welcome back. We are going to take a look back at today in our Python Django tutorials and such. We're going to go back and look at our task list. Last time around we looked at setting up an API. We're not going to completely connect to that yet, but we are going to start putting some pieces in place for that. So we're going to do it simply this time as far as going through our URLs, and then we're going to turn it into an API call in the future episode. So let's jump over to our task list. And what we're going to do today, back when we first built this out, if we did this complete, we were just going to say, a little alert. So let's actually turn this into something that's a little more useful. So let's change this one around. We're going to create a URL. So now we're going to actually come in and do we're going to call it complete. And we're going to give it a task ID. So remember, we have to give it int, and we're going to call it ID. And then this is going to be complete task. So for now, what we're going to do, now it's complaining we don't have that view. So complete task, let's just take this real quick. And we're going to come in and we're going to do it with an ID. And it's just called complete task. And here all we're going to do is we're going to print what we had before. So we're going to make it just sort of inch our way into this. So instead of our alert, we're going to print that out. And then we're going to return, actually it doesn't really matter. So let's just return, let's do it like this. Let's do this little looper thing that we did. We're just going to do a very simple response here. So this is almost an API call, but we're not really doing a whole lot with it. So now we have this complete. And what we want to do is, so in here, we're going to want to call complete, actually let's do it to slash complete, and then with the ID. So that's our goal, is we're going to make some call to this complete. Now the way to do this is we could call that and have it play around with our returns and come back to this screen, but we don't want to actually leave the screen. So in order to do that, we're going to do an AJAX call. And this is, if you've done it before, it's going to look actually very familiar because there's not a whole lot different when you do it in Django as you do with some of these other, pretty much wherever else you're going to use it. And that's one of those nice things, is that we've got a lot of extra features, but we can also, at the end of the day, do whatever we need to do it. So actually, let's call this command, or actually let's call it target, if I can spell it right, equals that. So that's going to be our target. And what we need to do is we're going to have to actually set up for an AJAX call. And the way we do that is we're going to do a var, we'll call this, we'll call it x HTTP. And that's going to be a new request, which is an XML HTTP request. And then we're going to do an open, if I can spell it right. And this is just going to be a get right now. And it's going to be our target. And so when we do this, and let's do this. And actually, let's look at this real quick, just to show that. So it's pretty straightforward when you do this HTTP request. There's a whole lot of sort of showing this. So you can just go Google that and pretty easily see that there's a lot that's available there. But what we're going to do is, and it's got some of the properties and some of the things you can do with it just to get going. what we're doing here is we're just going to call it and essentially ignore. We're not going to worry about something coming back. So we're just going to make the call. It's sort of a fire and forget. And then all we have to do is an http.send. And for now, let's just do a return. Return. And let's get our semicolons up there. And so now, same thing, we're just going to make this HTTP request. Now, first, let's do, oh, I do have that there. Okay, so let's take a look at that. I don't know if it's running. It is, but just in case, I'm going to restart the server. And if we go over here, now if we do complete, I don't see my alert, but if I go on to the command line, I'm going to see that I have an error. And oh, because it was a string. My mistake. That was in the views. And this is going to be a string. So it should reload. I think it did. And let's check that real quick. There we go. So task 4 is complete. And that's my ID. So now what we've done is we've been able to say, okay, I can complete each of these tasks if I want to. Now, of course, on the back end, all it's doing is displaying something right now. It's not actually completing it. And we're going to hold off on that anyways because we don't want to mess with our data too much yet. So now what we want to, oops, let's get rid of that because I keep bouncing around to that. Let's go back over to our screen itself. Now, one of the things we can do is we need to actually, because this is not refreshing from the back end, even if we were to complete it, then every time we would complete it, it would just come back and show us this list. So instead, what we need to do is we're going to have to make that disappear. Say, okay, we don't need that anymore. And so what we're going to do here is this ends up being very straightforward. We're going to do a get element by ID. And here's our ID is for in a given task. The ID is simply task underscore plus the ID, which is a nice reason that we did that. And actually we'll call him element. And then we're going to do, all we have to do to make him disappear is we're going to do element.style.display. And I'm going to make it none. So that's going to make this disappear, and then we can return. So when we make this call out to the database, we don't have to leave the screen. We're just going to send a call off here, which just don't really care what it is. I don't care what the return value is, really. And then I'm going to hide that that control. Let's see. I've got an error here. What's it complaining about? Oh, that's why. Let's just do it that way. So now if we reload it, I think I reloaded it, but let's just make sure. So now, if I come in and do this, then if I, now, I'm going to see these disappear. So I can see, like for here, time spent 15 on, this is my second task. Boom, now I just have my first and my fourth. But remember, we're not doing anything in the database, so we see those things. If we refresh, we're going to see them come back. And if we come over here, we can see where it was doing the task is complete. So now, let's say we actually wanted to complete the task. So let's do the most simple version right now, which is we're going to have to actually get the task. And this is going to be, we'll just call it here. So task equals, I think I called it task up here. Yes. So now we're going to do a get. Let's do it this way first. We're going to walk our way through this one a little bit. So we're going to get it based on the ID. And now let's just do print the task. And now if we take a look at this and we do a complete, we're going to see that, let's take a look at our model real quick. Oh, we did. So it should be name plus sort name. So let's take a look. We did something wrong here. We broke it somewhere. So we've got our ID. 1 to 10. So let's look back here. Okay, we actually forgot. This is not ID. It's actually PK equals that. We forgot to tell it what ID is. So now, let's go back over here. Let's restart our server. Let's reset because we're not actually doing anything with the database. Now, if we do this, we're going to see that we are getting my second task. If you can see back here, remember the models, we just give it a name and the short name. So that's what we're displaying. So now what we can do, if we want to actually do something with it, is we can take task dot, what did we call it? Status. And we're going to set status equal to whatever status we want it to be. So we're going to do two things. So we're going to actually create a status. We're going to call it complete, which equals status dot get. And here pk equals something. Let's see what the primary key is for that guy. Let's look. Oh, let's actually go to our admin real quick. Let's take this. And we can make use of our admin tool here. So here, if we look at our statuses here, complete, and ID is going to be 3, which we're seeing it there because it doesn't display on this one. But we can go back over here to our views. pk equals 3, so that's going to be a complete status. Let's actually print that out. Because then we're going to do task.status equals complete and task.save. Oh, .objects.get. So now we're going to see here, when we look at our tasks, and we can see here's all our statuses. Now my second task is actually already complete. So we're actually, that's right, because our list is not showing, doesn't care what, it's all tasks. It's not based on completion or anything like that. So we can come in here. If we look here, just to be safe, so we're going to do my first task. You see here, status is new. I'm going to go here. Now what we're going to do is, I think we got it all running. Was it complaining? Did I not get, oh, it's lookup status, isn't it? Okay. First, that's lookup status. And lookup status here. Should take that. Is that not right? No, it just hasn't caught up yet. There we go. Now it caught up. Let's restart. And so now let's take a look at our list. And let's look at my first task. When we edit it, notice status is new. But now we're going to complete it. And we'll be able to see here. Oh, it says it's still new. So let's take a look at that. Let's look at my tasks. Let's see what actually happened. So let's go over here and so it's set it to complete. And apparently we did not do things properly there. So let's take a look at that in a second. Where'd that go? That's in views. Oh, that's why we didn't actually call that right. So now, if we take a look at this guy, run it, we'll refresh just for grins. Let's go to task, my first task. We're going to complete it. And actually, we can look at it here. And we can see now it's complete, or here, you can see it's complete. So if we want to complete this, see that guy's completed. So now what we've got is a way for us to very quickly come through and work our task list without having to jump off the screen. Notice how fast it is. These are just quick calls. And we have a whole lot of helper prints going on in the background. So we're going to see a lot of extra information going on through here. Now we will clean that up next time. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually take this and we'll move it over to the API, which is not terribly complex. Except when we deal with the API, we're going to be outside of the Django models. So this same thing. It's going to look a little different. And I'm going to go ahead and play with that real quick because I've got about a minute or two here. So now if we do complete, if we add that route. So we're going to come in here, and our route is going to be complete. And we're going to give it a parameter. We'll deal with that in a second. Well, not in a second. We'll deal with that next time around. But then we're going to do complete task. And here, instead, it's going to look a little different because we're going to come in. Let's take that one. And this one, because we've got an ID, we're just going to play with it. We're going to pseudocode this one. So what this one would do is it would say update DP project underscore task, where ID equals, and we're just going to call it, we'll do it here. We're going to pseudocode it. We'll come back to it. And here it's going to execute. We don't have to do anything like that. And we're going to set, and I think it's called lookup status ID, because here it's going to be here. It's going to look something like that. And then we'll actually print that out anyways. Well, yeah, we can put it there. And then here it would just do that. So we're going to play around with this next time around and clean this up and actually tie all this back over to our API. So I want to get a couple of those pieces in place. They'll be out there as always tagged in Git. This is class or episode 21. And if you take a look at that, you'll be able to see the latest stuff. And next time we come around, we're going to hook this stuff up and sort of wrap up this little mini stretch of working with our application and an API, and then start building some more functionality into our app. So hope you enjoyed it. As always, leave comments if you have any questions, anything like that. We'll do what we can to get back to you as soon as we can. And go out there and have yourself a great day.